Well, hi, everyone. This is Michael, and welcome to the LoveWorks Dreamers and Doers podcast. We are bringing you today episode number 55. And if there's anything that we know is there is definitely not a shortage of great podcasts out there in the podcast universe. But we really want to thank you for tuning in to ours. And is at LoveWorks where we really believe with all of our hearts that you are never too young to be a dreamer. And you are definitely, Carolyn, never too old to get started working on that dream.
For sure. And our hope with Dreamers and Doers is that each week our special guest is going to connect with you wherever you find yourself today. They're going to inspire you to become the best version of yourself for tomorrow.
Absolutely. And if there's one thing, Carolyn, that we found, at least a common thread in our previous 54 guests, our Dreamers and Doers, is that each of them in their own way pursue a heart of personal growth and development. And we have a big phrase, don't we, at our campus that says personal growth can be a blast. And we're going to take a little different angle on it this morning. We always love to be able to curate for you students and parents that are listening and professionals, different kinds of books and musics, organizations, people to follow, blogs. Yes, they're still around, vlogs. But today we're going to take a little different spin on it, and we have Earth Day coming up, don't we, this month?
We do. I think we're declaring April now Earth Month, but we definitely do have a actual Earth Day coming up, I believe, on the 25th.
It is. And I think what's kind of cool about this is the fact that we do talk about personal growth, taking care of your inner world. And when you take a care and self-care of your inner self, then it's going to come out outwardly, externally. And so, Carolyn, I'm going to kind of give you the opportunity first to usher us into what is a product or two that you have adapted to using.
So one of the products that I love getting to use is actually a company in LA called Bella Canvas, and they make t-shirts. And I think something that most of us have heard of nowadays is called fast fashion, and an industry that is kind of producing a lot of material, but it's, unfortunately at the cost of sometimes people and also our environment. And so Bella Canvas is based out in LA. They are producing everything not inside of a sweatshop with their t-shirts, but they're also made out of recycled materials as well. And so really love what Bella Canvas is doing. And we try to print on their shirts as much as possible, Michael.
No, we definitely do. Something else that we're hoping to use more at our campus that is eco-friendly. I discovered a soap that's called Everyone hand soap. And in particular, I think we see the spearmint flavor there. I like the spearmint, but I also love the lemon as well. And so you can definitely find that at our house whenever we go on trips. Actually, we were just on a trip this weekend with some family and friends, and we brought our bottle of Everyone hand soap. Pretty cool.
That's awesome. I love that. And that's more popular than ever, right? Hand soap and sanitizing.
Hey, I will say I volleyed back and forth. Would Tom's shoes by chance count as an eco-friendly?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. There we go. I'll throw out
some love for Tom's, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Dreamers and Doers, we hope that you are making great choices when it comes to eco-friendly products. But we want to get into today's interview because it is going to be, we say this each week, but this is going to be a great one. We love to remind you, of course, of our format of Dreamers and Doers. Each week we have the opportunity to, and it really is, it's an opportunity and it's an honor to be able to sit down with someone that we've recognized and would identify as a dreamer and a doer. And we're going to take some time and be able to hear a dream story. But not only that, we're going to be able to hear about some of the early steps that our guests took to reach their dreams. And we hope that it's going to, after hearing these stories, that it's going to encourage, motivate, challenge, and even inspire you to get from the place where you are today to the place you desire to get to tomorrow.
Yep. And so let's meet Mr. Clint Gresham. He's the best-selling author of Becoming, the book about loving the process of wholeness. He's an international speaker. He's 2010 Seattle Seahawks All-Decade Team and Super Bowl 48 champion. In addition to excelling on the field, he was regarded a leader of men and an invaluable asset to the championship locker room. For years, Clint led meetings with his teammates on how to walk in true masculinity and how one must pursue greatness in every area of life. And believing that only to excel as a football player and to neglect the rest of your being would be eventually creating a fragile manhood and then poor performance on the field. In addition to his work in the locker room, Clint also spent several years as a volunteer young life leader. And when he's not traveling, he loves being at home in Dallas, Texas with his bride, Maddie, daughter, Zoe, and son, West, and German short hair pointer, Bear. Hi, Clint.
Hey, Clint, how are you?
Everybody?
Oh, great to see you. Doing well, doing well. Well, we were just kind of joking earlier that you're camping out right now outside of your house.
Yes, I'm hiding.
Hiding.
I have young children.
Clint, tell our listeners, why are you hiding?
Yeah, so I have a 2.5-year-old named Zoe who I don't know where she finds the caffeine every morning, but she is pumped and ready to go. And then a almost 3-month-old named West, and then our dog, the German short-hair pointer. He has to run like 10 miles a day. So I'll tell you how I normally run him. So we just moved into a new house, and I know this has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, but it's hilarious.
This is great.
So we just moved into a new house, and I have a Vespa. And can get 70 miles a gallon on that hog.
Oh my gosh.
And because I can't really run or walk 10 miles, and who wants to do that anyways when you can drive, I usually run him off leash in my neighborhood at like 10 o'clock at night on my Vespa, and he's got like a little e-collar. He's very well trained and very well behaved, but that's like the only way that I can get him to be tired so that he's not tearing up the house with my other 2 kids. He just had surgery, so he's like got all of the energy of needing that, but no outlet. So that's why I am in this cave called my garage.
Bless your heart. My wife Sale and I, we joke, and I don't know if you and Maddie have this joke by chance. You were referencing your little one and caffeine, but I asked Sale, I said, while you were pregnant, how much coffee were you drinking? Because our kids wake up and they're like a jumping caffeine coffee bean. It's wild. They wake up and they are just ready to go. 5 a.m. or 7 a.m. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was that kid too, and now my parents laugh at me.
Well, awesome, Clint. I'd love to jump into this, and we call it the Dreamers and Doers podcast, and we know that you're both a dreamer and a doer. Sometimes that includes potentially hiding out in the cave, but we wanted to ask you, what comes a little more naturally to you, the dreaming side or the doing side?
The dreaming side, for sure. So I actually have ADD, which I've found it was really challenging growing up with that. I found later in life that there is a way to channel that's really, really brilliant in a lot of ways. So I have a much more challenging time with, okay, now these are the next 3 steps that I need to take. I can come up with a million amazing ideas. And I think as any leader, you have to be aware of what your shortcomings are. And for some of us, I know for myself, I am so painfully aware of all of my shortcomings. So I've got to really shore up all of those areas in my life that I know that I'm not good at, and have the humility to admit to those things. And so I've found that if I can walk in humility in my life and not allow shame to come and set into my heart if I feel like I'm not doing well at something, realizing that that's actually really, really normal. And so none of us are going to be able to accomplish anything by ourselves. Like the self-made man or woman, I just don't think is really the full story ever.
Mm-hmm.
So for myself, I can dream great. And as long as I have people around me, then I can do those things. And whenever I don't have people around me, that's usually where I can find myself in kind of this cyclical frustration. Why can't I just do the things that I want to do? And I have to come back to, oh, this has actually kind of been my norm for a long time. So I need to call a friend or something.
Clint, thank you for just like jumping right off into, I feel like, vulnerability and connecting with our students and our listeners that probably feel in the same boat. Like it's real easy for me to come up with ideas and to dream, but it's really hard for me to put it into action. And so at what point do you feel like, did you figure it out? Like, hey, I really need to have people surrounding me.
It was really hard for me to put my finger on what it was that was causing kind of that sense of frustration. Playing sports was really great for me. I think I would have not done well in a individual sport like golf or tennis or something like that. I needed to have a tribe around me. I think that's how most people are. I mean, we're wired for community. Like God in himself is a community. Like we were meant to be around people. And you know, it's been said that we're the average of the 5 people that we spend the most amount of time with. And so I would say early on, I realized that I'm not great on my own. And I would go through seasons of isolation in my life. My freshman year at the University of Oklahoma, before I transferred to TCU, go Frogs.
Boomer.
I would have been that guy. 2005, I was at OU, and but it didn't work out there, and that's great. God had other plans for my life.
He did.
But I went through seasons of my life of being isolated, and I had some mentors in my life that I would call frequently. I think that I did a great job of constantly seeking out people who were a couple of seasons ahead of me. And that was one thing that would come up a lot is, hey, like, how are you doing connecting with other people? And if I was honest, I would say, I'm not that great. I actually don't feel like I'm very good at it. And like, even that in itself made me feel super insecure. Like, I don't feel like I'm doing great making friends, and I'm like 22. And one thing that absolutely saved my life was getting involved with Young Life. Like, I loved youth ministry. I feel like I'm just a giant kid, and moving in with 4 or 5 other guys who were my same age, who were doing something meaningful with their life other than just trying to work and make money, brought me into like this cocoon where things that were in my heart had the space to grow. So it was kind of a tough lesson to learn. And it's like, I go back to what I said earlier about knowing what your weaknesses are. Like, I know that I'm not great at that. And so I have to lean into inviting other people into my life. And especially now, like, we live in the weirdest times. Like, you know, like, I wish I was in person with you guys doing this, but we're in a pandemic. And so it's even harder now to do that kind of stuff and connect with people when it's like a handshake it's like, oh my gosh, a handshake can kill you now. It's crazy. We live in the weirdest times. So
the approach is a little bit different. Do we keep the 6 feet of distance? Do we go in for a fist bump, a handshake?
Air 5.
Yeah, who knows? You know, Clint, this is so good already. There's a lot of things that we're going to touch on. I mean, you are an author who has written an incredible book, a man of faith. We're going to talk a little bit about fatherhood, possibly your video, The Making of a Champion. We are talking today to a Super Bowl champion. And you mentioned earlier, though, that, you know, this is the Dreamer and Doer podcast. You consider yourself a dreamer. So I'm kind of curious, just when you were young, was that one of your dreams potentially to play football, or did you have any other ideas and dreams at that time?
well, first I wanted to be a Blue Angel pilot. Then I wanted to be a fireman. Then I just wanted to pass 4th grade and get Mrs. Brune off my butt. She was hard on me.
We'll tag her in the show notes.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Full shout out.
You get a lot of traction from Corpus Christi, Texas. Yeah, sorry, what was the question? I have ADD.
You're good. So it was the curiosity, and the question comes from the standpoint of, at LoveWorks, we work with hundreds, we work with thousands of students, and I'd say vast majority of them, if you were to ask them at that age, middle school age in particular, 10 years old, 12 years old, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
What do you want to be when you want to grow up? I want to be a professional football player.
Right.
We all know on this call, and maybe our listeners know this or they don't, but a very small, micro, single-digit percentage actually make it to professional sport. So I was just curious, was that one of your early dreams? And then maybe adding on to that question, when did it become your dream?
I remember in 8th grade, I had a coach. He actually wasn't my coach. He was one of the high school football coaches. He came down and he was substitute teaching one day, and he did this little example of he pulled a bunch of grass from the ground. He's like, this is high school sports, and he took some out. This is college sports, took some out. This is professional sports. And I don't even remember what his point was, but his point was basically you need to go to class kind of thing. And so my dad played football at the University of Texas, and I remember going to those football games when I was 9, 10 years old. And I even put a story in my book of running into one of my favorite football players at the University of Texas that my dad later connected with 2 years ago. He's like, "Did you know you're in my son's book?" And he did this thing where I saw him in a hallway, and he got onto an elevator, and me and my buddy, we were on the 10th floor of this dorm at a UT football camp, and we chased after the guy, and we run down 10 flights of stairs to try to catch up to him. We finally get to the elevator lobby, and we actually beat him down there because we're jumping from platform to platform. Mm-hmm. And the doors open up, and this white billowing smoke comes out, and I'm pretty sure that Jesus himself was there. And so he comes walking out, and he just kind of walks by me. He's like, "What's up, man?" And I'm like, "Oh God, I can die now." "What's up, man?"
Yeah.
And that moment just kind of marked me. And that's a whole other topic about just the power of having heroes. But from an early age, I wanted to play sports. And because, I would say that a lot of it kind of came from a lack of knowing who I was. I was a really, really, really insecure kid. I also had horrible acne when I was in 8th and 9th grade, and I had to take Accutane for 5 or 6 months. It felt like a bomb blew up on my face, and honestly, it made me hate myself. And then another thing that growing up in South Texas was I sweat a lot, and South Texas is hot and humid. And so I just had this constant self-consciousness in me. And it's probably a lot of the reason that I gravitated towards sports, because sports made me feel like I mattered, made me feel like I'm important. I was good at it. And so it was sort of this dual thing of I'm trying to find meaning. I'm trying to understand who I am. And I think sports are so great because they can address a lot of those things. They do give you sort of this sense of identity, a sense of community, people that you're, doing something challenging with. And so, I would say from a very early age, I wanted to be a professional football player. And then it happened. And then it was oh, whoa, I almost don't feel like I had anything to do with it. It's I was just doing what I was taught to do. And I did it as hard as I possibly could. This is a great story. So my summer before my senior year of high school, my best friend, he asked me, "Hey, do you want to go to France and Italy and sail up and down the French and Italian Riviera with my dad on his 173-foot yacht and a bunch of our other friends. And I'm like, sounds awesome. Let's go spend 2 weeks doing that. And so for 2 weeks, I'm like, so I later found out that like there's been tons of actors and actresses on this boat. Like Quentin Tarantino was on this boat like the week before. And so I'm like waking up and I got like this crew of 12 people who are, would you like another smoothie, Mr. Gresham? It's like, I'm a minor. I'm 17. But I'm like, yes. And let's go wakeboarding in the Mediterranean after this. And I brought a football with me and I would snap that football every single day. And I would go to the top deck of this $20 million yacht and I would practice snapping. Or I would take a jet ski to the beach and I would practice snapping on the beach. And because it was important to me, and whatever the good things or bad things that were going on around me, it's like once you find that thing that you're passionate about and the thing that you're good at, man, pour yourself into it. And, you know, I said earlier that I didn't do a great job of doing, and that's sort of true. I think I didn't do a great job most of the time of really identifying what is the one thing that I'm good at. And because once I found that thing, I could lock onto it. But for a long time, it took me a while to figure out what that was.
Wow. Clint, I want to park here for just another moment. And you mentioned finding that's something that's important to you. And I think back, I shared with you earlier, I think it was before we went live, just about, you know, my aspiration and dream to play professional baseball.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest with you. I had a knowing, and when I really look back at it, I had a knowing and a realization. It was my junior year of high school that I didn't have what it took to get to that next level. So in other words, an 81 mile an hour fastball could blow by people in, you know, middle school.
Yeah.
When you're holding on to, you're right-handed an 87 mile an hour fastball, and that's about what you got. I just knew, but that was the plan A. When I think back of just the affirmation that I received growing up, it was only about really, it was just about athletics, and it was about baseball. Yeah. You know, and then I continued to pursue it for another 3, 4, 5 years. That's a whole nother story. Went down, a pretty ugly road until I realized that I finally had to set the glove down and pursue something else. And that was then the plan A for my life. When did you know? Was there a moment that you saw beyond? Because I'm sure there were others around you that had the same kind of aspiration and goal. They were going to go to college, play a few years, and then they're going to get drafted to the NFL. Was there a single moment that you're like, there really is something here. I've got what it takes, and this is what it's going to be?
I knew in high school that I could play in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I wasn't arrogant about it at the time. And part of that was just because my position was so specialized. It's like I'm a professional dart thrower, you know, like so like the year that we won the Super Bowl, we had 2 game-winning field goals. I think those were actually the only 2 game-winning field goals that I had in my NFL career. Yeah. And so one was like a 48-yard field goal in the rain, and I have to throw a football 8 yards so that the ball rotates 2.5 times into a target that's like this big, so that when the holder catches it, the laces are pointing forward. And so it's intense. And but even when I was young, I knew that I was good at it, and I knew that this is something that I could be successful with. That other side to it, I tell people also that I feel fortunate because I feel like I was forced to have kind of my identity crisis 30 years before my peers in a lot of ways. Yeah. Because like since I was 9, I wanted to play professional football. And then when I turned 30, I'm no longer playing football. And then I wrote my book and I traveled and I did all of that kind of stuff. But there is sort of this sharp drop off of like, what is my purpose now? What's meaning now? I think we can equate, this is what it means to be successful, that you're doing something really important. And I've come to realize that living an extraordinary life has kind of nothing to do with how many people are watching that life. That once, like, I have a family, I have a wife, I have children, and living an extraordinary life has nothing to do with, winning more games, but who am I to the people that are closest to me? Because I like, truly, like, even as recent as a couple of weeks ago, would get into this trap of, okay, but I'm not playing football anymore. Do I have any more meaning?
Yeah.
And that's an inside job. And that's something that I knew while I was playing football. But I've realized that it's inevitable that wherever we get our greatest sense of significance, we're going to tie our sense of meaning to it. And that's the danger. And then there's this other side of that where you can feel like, well, that is dangerous, so I'm not going to put everything I have into it because I could lose it. And then that's also a trap. So it's about finding whatever it is that brings you joy, that honors God, that fulfills a path of purpose in your life, doing it with all of your might, and not letting any type of numerical metric be the measure of what your success is, but defining what the success is before anybody else can have a say in it, before anybody else can say, oh, you're successful. Because now it's all of a sudden like, if I'm insecure, which was my story, oh, you said I was good at this? Okay, let me do it way, way more. And that can get you into a trap too.
So true. Well, thank you for placing the emphasis on that side of it. And just even my three little kids, if I can get them to understand just their inner value and their worth and identity, how much of a game changer that is going to be later in life, that they're not going to place the priority, and value on the thing, the resources, the accolades, the attention, but it's their inner worth. Clint, I think it's a great segue. You mentioned extraordinary life, and we like to spend time just talking about just the early dreams that you had growing up. We're going to touch on some other things in just a few minutes and get into the doing aspect. But we do have a question, and it's a question from one of our students here at LoveWorks. His name is Luke, and he does ask a question about the extraordinary life. So let's hear that question now.
Hi, my name is Luke, and I'm 11 years old. My dream is to be a canine officer. My question for Clint is, when did you decide to live an extraordinary holy life over an ordinary life?
Bam.
Luke is awesome. I love that. I need Luke to mentor me. So deep.
We can set that up, Clint.
Yes. Well, Luke, you are a stud, and I'm proud of you for having vision, first and foremost. When it comes to deciding when to live an extraordinary versus an ordinary life, I would say it was the moment that I started looking introspectively, which was kind of a series of events throughout my childhood. So my parents got divorced when I was 8, and then for several years after that, I was going to a lot of counseling. I was doing something called biofeedback to help deal with my ADD. I was having a hard time in school. And I think that out of all the things that I've accomplished in my life, and there have been a lot, and I say that humbly, the thing that I'm most proud of, and I'm thankful for my mom, is that she made counseling and talking about my feelings really normal. I remember, so like I would lead these men's groups with guys, and like we got stars in there, like Pro Bowlers, really, really good players who cannot talk about what's going on in their inner world. And I'm just like, hey, like, this is me. And so this is what I'm struggling with. And like, it didn't make any sense to me that somebody couldn't just talk about what they were dealing with. And I feel like that is such a gift that my mom gave me, of making that normal, because that's what life is. Like, if you're going to have any type of meaningful relationship with somebody, and you have to be careful, because I also fell into another ditch of oversharing with people who weren't on that same wavelength. And so you have to be wise with that, with who you talk to about things. But I would say that, I mean, I was probably 10 or 11, and choosing to live an extraordinary life was choosing to, I'm going to have the courage to look at my demons, look at the areas that I feel really, really insecure about, and then step into that stuff. And the result of all of that was that things in my life started to work out more. And I got to play in the NFL for 6 years, which was 6 years longer than I thought I would. I'm 50% in Super Bowls. I hate Tom Brady. Dang it. For those who don't know, Super Bowl 49, Seahawks are back-to-back Super Bowls, and we're on the 1 yard line with one of the best backs in football, and we throw the football and it gets intercepted, and I cried.
Yeah. The therapy
heavy moment
continues on the Dreamers and Doers podcast.
Yes,
Clint.
Absolutely. Dr. Finkel got even more of my money. Not really. I don't have a Dr. Finkel. Funny story though. So after we lost Super Bowl 49 against the Patriots, we go into the locker room after the game, and some guys are screaming at the top of their lungs, cussing people out. I mean, it literally felt like a war zone. And so our head coach, Pete Carroll, who is one of the most incredible men I've ever met in my life, and even when he fired me, I was like, dang it, I still like you. But so he looks at me and he's like, okay, Gresh, go ahead and talk to us, which was my cue to pray for the game. And I'm like, ugh. I have no idea what to say right now. God, curse the Patriots. May they never win another Super Bowl. And God ignored that prayer because it was selfish. But yeah, that was a moment right there.
Clint, you just mentioned you're 50-50 in Super Bowls. I'm just trying to,
yeah.
I just try and wrap my head around that, how casually you just said and talked about a Super Bowl loss to the Patriots. I'm curious, and I know, and this will I'm sure come out towards the end of the interview, where you place, and already did, where you place the emphasis of your life. It's not on Super Bowls. It's more than football. But I'm just curious, when you find yourself and your mind drifts on a Tuesday or a Thursday or a Monday morning like today, do you happen to drift over to the Super Bowl loss or towards the Super Bowl victory? Where's your headspace at?
Yeah, I think that that is really, really tough, because it's like, if you smash one of your fingers with a hammer, you're going to think, like, pain has a stronger sensation in our brain than pleasure does a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. So it is, I would say that it's normal to think about the things that hurt, and to think about, and for those to have a greater weight in our heart. And it takes a lot of discipline to choose to be grateful for what you have. Mm-hmm. And that's something that, as somebody who has struggled with sort of this powerless feeling of like being a victim and being a victim to circumstances, I really have to kind of guard my mind from allowing myself to stay in those places. And when I do feel myself sort of start to drift towards, but then this happened, and I kind of get pouty, and mm-hmm. I truly have to stop myself, and I have to think about, okay, but there's this happening, and there's this happening. And it takes discipline, because a victim mentality can be so alluring. And it's intoxicating, because it can make people notice us and give us attention. And that is not the kind of attention that you want. It's not going to, it may give you some instant, like, oh, somebody noticed me, but it's not going to pay off in the long run. And so choosing to have a grateful heart and not complaining and not focusing on the negative, because if you were honest and didn't have a distorted thinking about certain things, you would realize that actually there's a whole lot of really good things happening in your life. Mm-hmm. And if you camp there, you're going to start to notice those good things a whole lot more. And that's what, it's amazing. The way that we think about things is truly amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, Clint. That was so practical and just sharing, mindset. I feel like that's really what it goes into. And maybe this was part of what you shared as far as being on a team. Obviously, you're a valuable asset as a long snapper, but in addition to that, I think you were helping build character. And can you kind of let us in a little bit to the locker room? I feel like that's kind of an idea in a lot of people's mind of like, what happens there, right?
Yeah. Everything. It's a weird place.
Which version of the Dreamers and Doers? Is this the PG version or is this the NC-7? Which one is now?
But obviously, you had a huge influence on the team. If you're talking to the team, if Pete Carroll's giving you that charge, but how did you lead and influence not just as a sportsman, but also as like a man?
I would say the most important thing for me when it came to that was that I had a life outside of football. Like I said, I bought a house on Mercer Island, which is a very affluent area in the Seattle, Puget Sound area. And, I lived with 5 other guys. It was really, really normal. We would have like 100 kids a week coming to our house for Young Life. Like I was going to JV football games on Thursday night. Like literally every single day, like I was doing something in the community. Every single Tuesday on my day off, I would go to the elementary school and play kickball with these kids there for years. And so because I had a life outside of the area that I was trying to influence, I wasn't trying to get something from the area that I was trying to influence. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't need anything from them. I didn't need them to accept me and love me because I already had that. And that was a really important thing that I just sort of stumbled upon that I didn't even realize was actually really, really critical. But I mean, like there were times where so I would pray before the games for the team. We would all, so like 2 minutes before kickoff, probably like 15 minutes before kickoff, the entire team, we have, full pads, like we're ready to go out onto the field. We would all walk into the shower and everybody would lock arms with each other. And then like this one dude, he'd look at me and be like, "All right, Gresh, we ready to go. Let's pray." And I'm like, "Yeah, man." One of the best compliments I ever got in my life was from this defensive lineman. And we had just lost the 2012 wild card game to the Atlanta Falcons. And he was on the back of the bus and he had the microphone. We were driving back to the facility. It's like 2:00 in the morning after flying in from Atlanta. And he's like giving guys shout outs and kind of like making fun of guys too. And like the entire bus, there's 50 guys on this bus are just rolling laughing. He's like, "And you know what? Shout out to Gresh. Man, I ain't ever heard a white man pray like that." Like, that's my dog, man. Like, that's the coolest thing that anyone's ever said to me. It was so funny. So, like, there would be moments where guys would come up to me and just be like, "Hey, man, like, I really appreciate what you said." And, like, I hadn't talked to this guy all year. And then there would be moments where, like, we're sitting in the locker room, like, having a real conversation. But I would say the key was I had a life outside of football. And that gave me the oxygen that I needed to go into a world that I was frequently scared of and frequently 99.9% of the time felt completely inadequate to be in. And that was actually what qualified me to be there because it made me depend on something greater than myself.
Wow. Clint, we're going to talk about your platform today and how you're using it. But just thinking about that word influence, and we asked you a question, how you influenced your team, but you had mentioned Pete Carroll's name a couple of times. And would you mind just talking with us just a little bit just about what kind of influence that Pete had on you and your leadership?
So I wanted to play for Pete since I was 15 years old, and I begged my dad to send my film to USC. And my dad confessed in our 2011 Christmas card that he sends to everybody in the world that he forgot to send it to California because we were in Texas and he didn't want me to go all the way to California. Thanks, Dad.
And a little rivalry there as well, too.
Yeah. But I have never met anybody in my life who is more disciplined with his words. Like the way that he speaks is a thermostat. Like it's not a thermometer. Like he doesn't fluctuate with everything else that's going on. Like, no, he sets, this is who we are. Like I remember my rookie year, we were 7-9. We were the only team at that point in NFL history to win their division with a losing record. Like, we did not look good. And then we go and we beat in the first round of the playoffs the defending Super Bowl champions, and actually the team that cut me, the New Orleans Saints, because I signed with the Saints right out of college, in the first round of the playoffs. And all year long, he's talking about how we were the best team in football. And I'm like looking around and be like, I don't know. You talking about me? And he just like saw things in people that 31 other teams wouldn't take the time to see. And like he really saw people. Yeah. And like I really mean that. Like when he cut me, I'm like I was like, thank you so much for letting me be a part of your organization for so long, because you're a hero of mine for years. Like so much so that anytime we walk past each other, I'd be like, hey, can I get your autograph? Gresh, we just won the Super Bowl. I know, it's fine. Picture, selfie. Yeah, he's had a huge influence on my life.
Wow, what a big deal. So powerful. Just that thought of, just ways then using our words that we can, bring out the best in other people. Clint, you are bringing out the best in other people in a lot of different ways. You've done it through your documentary, which if you want to touch on, feel free to, The Making of a Champion, to your recent book, Becoming, loving the process of wholeness. Wholeness is definitely a central theme in any interview that I've heard you give. Then, of course, in your book. Would you mind just touching on that? What is wholeness and what does it require?
Yeah. So I define it as giving up hope for a better past, relinquishing control for a perfect future, and then choosing joy and courage right where your feet are. And it's sort of this aspirational pursuit where you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, knowing that you're going to be in each side of that ditch most of the time, and that's actually the point. Choosing to walk in faith and not allowing whatever it is that's inside of us to cause us to stray from whatever our vision is. And like when I wrote that book, so I wrote that book in 2017. It took me a year to write it, and it was truly like a therapeutic process for me, and one that I felt like helped me process my own pain in my life. But it is a choice, and it takes courage, and it's not easy. But I'm finding, even 4 years now after writing it, that the truths in it are continuing to teach me, and that I have to remain humble. I have to remain teachable. I have to open up my heart to other people, so that I don't fall into the traps that I've fallen in my past.
Yeah. We talked earlier, and we spent some time, of course, just hearing about the dream to be a football player. Was there a moment you had the realization that there was an author inside of Clint Gresham?
I had a couple of English teachers when I was in high school say that I was good at writing,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe not my grammar or spelling, but my thoughts were decent. Um, and I really enjoyed the creative process of it, and I felt like I had something to say. And I always tell people, like, if you survived childhood, like, you have a book in you. And like, if nobody read my book, it would have been a success for me, because the success was taking everything that had happened inside of here and putting it out there so that it was more succinct and I could continue to learn from it. And it helped kind of reinforce a lot of these lessons in my life. And it helped me not have to relearn a lot of those lessons.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to write more books. I just haven't had the time. So
we'll need more time to escape to the garage to
yes, my writing cave. I want to write a book and just about our need to belong, and I don't want to go too much into it because I don't know when this is going to happen, but about how all of us want to belong, but it's also the thing that we're most afraid of, because our greatest fear is getting kicked out of the tribe, in a sense. Mm-hmm. And so it's this tension that is very, very challenging, and even more challenging now.
Yeah.
Clint, I love seeing just this way of leadership where I feel like you're propelling yourself forward, but you're also pulling people along with the resources that you're giving, the way that you want to influence. And one of those ways is something called 7 Keys. And this is something for parents, educators, anyone working with really teen youth. And I got to read over it. I love it. It's called 7 Keys, and how to interact with teens. But can you brush on this and where people can find this, particularly our families that are listening right now?
Yeah. If you go to clintgresham.com, there should be a little thing that pops up that says that it's like a free download. I haven't checked it in a while because I do have a newborn, so give me grace. But yeah, just after a lot of years of working with youth, really probably since and I'm like the oldest of 4 also, so I've been around kids a lot. Mm-hmm. And but I would say, like, the most important thing out of those 7 principles of working with young people is leading with empathy, like this idea of empathizing with somebody and truly understanding them, instead of just, and like that has been something that has truly tested me now that I have a toddler. It was easy for me to write about that before I had kids, and then I'm like, okay, here's my opportunity to actually walk this out. But dealing with the emotions and soothing those emotions before you try to get into behavioral change. Mm-hmm. Because anytime that you're trying to just, like, I'm going to force this thing to be this way, you're just going to create a ton of resentment, and it's going to make things usually a lot worse. So there's a bunch of stuff on there that I've found to be really, really valuable, and you can get it on my website with all my other stuff.
That's good. We'll definitely include that in the show notes, of course, and we're definitely going to be sending that out to our families and to our students that are listening as well. Clint, you heard me mention it earlier that if there was a thread that ties all of our guests together, well, at least one of the threads is their heart desire for personal growth and development and their daily habits. But they also have a common thread of loving what they do, getting a chance to love what they do. And so I'm just kind of curious for you, what is it that you love the most about what you get the opportunity to do with your life?
Right now, I mean, it's the flexibility. It's allowed me to, and sometimes I can feel apologetic that that my life is so flexible.
Yeah.
And that sort of stems from this, I don't know, insecurity thing, but I worked so hard to get to where I am, and I made it an absolute mission in my life to maximize everything that came with being a professional football player. And so whether that's setting my family up emotionally, physically, financially, mentally. That I put in a whole lot of work early in my life before I got married to get to the place that my family and I are at now, so that we have the flexibility to just be with each other. So I think that is, and now that I have a newborn, getting to be with him so much during these early moments is priceless. But it also costs something. And when all my friends that I played with were, going out and partying and stuff, I was at a middle school football game, and because that, I realized that, man, I've seen that story play out a lot. And I've watched 30 for 30 about guys going broke. And I'm not going to make those decisions because I know that they don't. And the thing is like, even they know that. Mm-hmm. But and there's this whole other topic about addiction that we could talk about, because that is real. Yeah. But I paid the price for it, mm-hmm. and it was way more worth it than I even thought back then. Mm.
That's good. Oh my gosh, man, the insight. I feel like this has been going through my head. I got to thank Clint Gresham's mom for.
Yeah. Martha Boo, shout out.
Yeah, so insightful. So good. Well, Clint, I think you mentioned this a little bit too. You gave us a preview. You're potentially working on a new book, spending some time dreaming there, but also with your new family. Mm-hmm. Take a moment. Can you speak to your middle school self, who maybe wasn't dreaming yet of being an author or being a Super Bowl champion, but what's a piece of advice that you would want to share with your middle school or high school self?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. I would say just be patient and don't worry about the results. Don't worry about what you think that you need to do, but just trust the process and engage in what it is that is life-giving for you in that moment. Mm-hmm. And it'll take care of itself.
That's good. Well, Clint, we know that you have Zoe, you have Wes that are waiting for you. Most importantly, you have Maddie
behind me. I think my wife's just texting me.
So you'll be glad that we make this last question short, 60 seconds. And I'm already, like Carolyn, I'm already envisioning just the sound bites that we're going to be able to drop on social media, on our website, on YouTube, of course, to our student body here at LoveWorks and all of our listeners. But we also love to give our dreamer and doer the last word, just 60 seconds, just whatever just might be on your heart that would encourage both the dreamer and the doer that is listening. So Clint, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, set and go.
All right. So I would say that whatever it is that brings you joy and something that builds esteem in you, to continue to focus on that as much as you can. Find delight in whatever it is that is filling up your heart, and don't allow for, whether it's the praise or the criticism of people, to be the thing that causes you to feel really excited and motivated, or to not feel like trying at all. So the more that you can just focus on what brings you joy without surrounding noise is where you want to find yourself.
Boom. Awesome. Clint, thank you so much for sharing this today. I feel like it's been so jam-packed from the perspective of, hearing it for a student who is maybe a dreamer, having a hard time to get to that action step, to a parent figuring out, like, how do I best, give resources, and how do I share and lead my student, my child, to succeeding, not just, of course, like in the success, the way the society says it, but really by pursuing that joy. So thank you, Clint.
Yeah, absolutely.
Clint, you already mentioned it, of course, just your website. We're going to include all of that in the show notes and more, but any other places that we can find you, and or even a project maybe that we didn't touch on yet that you just want to make us aware of?
ClintGresham.com. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I'm not on it as much, but I probably post to Instagram the most. At Gresh49. But I would say the thing that, and I actually made these for myself. I made these self-talk cards, and on one side is an affirmation, the other side is a scripture that supports that truth. And they're just really practical ways of getting the principles of the word into your heart. I truly made these for myself, and anytime I go speak somewhere, I sell way more of those than I do my books. And that's actually really reassuring to me, because it's like, oh, I'm not the only one who struggles with like this negative self-talk. And those are on my website, but I've found those to be really, really valuable for young people because it's simplified.
Oh, that's powerful. I'm glad you said that and reference that. We will as well too. And I've heard that they've ended up in peculiar places, like living rooms, bedrooms, and even bathrooms.
Oh yeah, all over the place.
Absolutely, wherever you spend the most time, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we knew it was going to be great. This is even better than expected. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you pouring into us, into LoveWorks, our students, our listeners. Thank you this morning for making us better.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate it. Take care, Clint.
Alrighty. We'll see you guys.
We'll see you.
Just a reminder to visit www.loveworksleadership.org to learn more about us. We even have our personal contacts on there. So if you have someone that you think, hey, that would be a great person to interview, tell me more about that dreamer and doer, hit us up. Let us know who to reach out to. Especially Carolyn's cell phone number. Her mobile actual number is on our website. That's real. Right. Text me. Yep. That is real talk. And also, to little shameless plug, don't forget, please, to check us out, like and subscribe the Dreamers and Doers podcast, and give us a review. I know everyone asks for a 5-star review. We're not asking for 5 stars. We're asking for any kind of review, however many stars that you want to give us, and a comment or two, because we want to be able to make this the best we can to be able to reach the younger and the older dreamers and doers that are out there. And remember, everybody, real leaders, they don't blend in, but they stand out. Dream big. Do your dreams. Bye, everybody.